Good morning. Welcome back to BT. Meredith and Sid here with you. Inspired by the Chanie Wenjack story and Gord Downie's call to build a better Canada, the Gord Downie Chanie Wenjack Fund aims to build cultural understanding and create a path forward towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. Joining us now is Kaylee Jordan McGregor with the Fund to continue the conversation. Kaylee, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Sanse, thank you for having me here.
So I know, hopefully, Chanie's story is getting out to a lot of Canadians, but for those who are not familiar, could you share his story?
Absolutely. Chanie Wenjack was a 12-year-old Anishinaabe boy who passed away trying to escape the residential school system. For the first 9 years of his life, he lived in a Goki Post on the Martin Falls Reserve in Northern Ontario. He lived with his sisters, they had 2 dogs, they lived off the land, they lived a very normal existence until he and his siblings were forcibly taken to Cecilia Jeffrey Indian Residential School near Kenora. And after a few years at that school, he tried to escape, not realizing how far he was from his family. And this wasn't uncommon. He was more than 600 kilometers away. And the reason this was that it would be that much harder for children to reunite with their families. And if they were lucky enough to find their family again, they likely would no longer speak the same language. But he found a rail path and tried to follow that home, not understanding the distance he was up against. And it was late October in Northern Ontario. He wasn't dressed for the elements, so he passed away due to starvation and exposure. And his body was found by a railway worker on a passing train. So that's the reason it had to be reported. His death couldn't be covered up, and it actually resulted in the first inquest into a death at a residential school, or the treatment of children at residential schools.
And to further people's embracing here and absorbing of the story, the late Gord Downie and what he did to get the story out. Walk us through that. How important was he in this?
Yeah, Gord's call to action to do something is very important to us. It's sort of our own call to the rest of the country. And you might remember during that final concert with the Tragically Hip, he looked out to the crowd and he said, "We're going to figure it out." But then he stopped himself and he had to pause, realizing that he wouldn't be here with us. And he said, "You're going to figure it out." So that was really what spurred on the creation of the Gord Downie and Chanie Wenjack Fund, with the involvement of the Wenjack family, who still guide us to this day. And you know, there's a path to harnessing this momentum of the outpouring of grief we've seen over the last few years. And that starts with virtual events, a lot of activations that we have as an organization. Later today, we're actually airing an event called Intergenerational Resilience. And it features my colleague Joel Cardinal and his family's experience at Blue Quills Residential School. We have Secret Path Week coming up, which marks the passing of Gord and Chanie. Gord on the 17th of October, Chanie on the 22nd of October. So those dates don't change every year, and it's really our annual call to action to everyone to do something, to get involved. It's a path that we're all on together, and no matter where you are on that journey, it's most important that you're taking your first step on the journey.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's
been a powerful week.
Yeah,
I understand.
It really has.
Yeah.
It really has. And Orange Shirt Day is now in its 10th year, and National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is now in its 3rd. So how can we continue to move forward?
Right. I think not relegating it to this certain time of year is a really important part of that, and understanding that you can do small things. We call them reconciliations. So that's any meaningful action that moves reconciliation forward. There's June, which is Indigenous History Month. There's Secret Path Week later this year. There are all kinds of dates throughout the year where you can really make this a priority in your workplace, in your school, in your community. You can go home and talk to young ones in your life about it. They're the next generation of voters and leaders in this country. So the fact that we have programming in schools through our Legacy Schools and Youth Ambassador program is really important in sort of changing that narrative for their future and their understanding of our shared history on this land.
If you at home, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I feel like that conversation in particular with your children. I know, we've got 2 children in our household, and potentially parents can think, how do I say this? How do I go through this? But I know we had Phyllis Webstad here, and she had written a book, very recently about that, and I really point people toward that as well, because these are atrocious, heinous events. But our children need to know about them.
Yes, absolutely. You have to confront it. There has to be an awareness and an acknowledgement of the past to move forward.
Absolutely. If you want to know more about Chanie's journey, we all need to know more. DownieWenjack.ca is where you can go, and we have to keep that conversation going. That's what this is about. It's about learning. It's about figuring out what happened, why it happened, why we didn't know about it sooner as just regular people in school. and try and fix that for the next generation. And it's through conversations like this. Kaylee, we really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Open door whenever you want to come by. Thank you
Thank
very
you so much. That means a
Appreciate you.
lot. Appreciate it.